Right, so again, good morning. My name is Tamara. I'm currently the academic director at Aroon International School, which is a small and new international school that we've developed out of a 25 plus year old Thai school that is a very firm holistic practicing school. So we're now in our third year of operations. So really our first year post COVID. So it seems like everything's quite new this year. It's very different from when we opened, which was right when we had our first lockdown. So it's been quite an interesting journey, and I'm really looking forward to maybe not so much how I looked on your email, Andrea, about how can guide our community, actually guiding my community, thinking about what it means to become a teacher in that sort of setting, because it's interesting to see how that process unfolds for teachers who are new to kind of the deeper or more all-encompassing holistic practices. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody also about their own journeys today as well. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me to facilitate or be here and discuss with you all today.
Vi, you want to introduce yourself? Because Tamara knows the rest of us. We can all introduce ourselves, but okay. I think you're the only one she doesn't know.
Okay, well, I was really looking forward to this talk because holistic education is my passion. I really believe that in this country we need to do some education reform, big time. And so I can't teach anymore. I'm sort of shut in. So what I do is I have a Facebook group for teachers of earth science. And then I just research and find information on holistic education, because this is systems-based earth science, kind of like going with Fridge of Capra and the web of life idea, and Thomas Berry and all of these, holistically minded people. So that's what I do. I just, I learn everything I can. I go to webinars and I pick up information and just open my ears and say, oh, that my teachers are really going to like that stuff. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, because a lot of them are in kindergarten. So this is for kindergarten through 8th grade. And I believe you can start teaching holistic earth science from 6 years on up. And so I'm curious to see what you have to say, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm Robin. And so nice to see you all again. I was just, before Cam and Andrea, before you came on, I was just saying, I've been on Zoom since 10 a.m. this morning, having one-on-one meetings with all my MAT students about curriculum planning, and they're designing these backward units, and they're doing their first stage. And I just wanted to help them each where they were, because they were all coming from a different place. But it also means I've been on the computer all day. So, but they were all really good conversations. So, and I just didn't want to miss this either. So here I am.
Well, we're Andrea and Cam. Introduce, we're on the same screen. And I feel like most of you know us, but I'm kind of inspired after you said that, Robin. Maybe if we all just take a moment to rub our hands together and place our hands and just cup them over our eyes. So whether you're feeling tired or been looking at a screen all day, just taking a few deep breaths with the hands cupped over the eyes. And as you do this, just a little bit of gentle pressure from our cupped hands over the eyes creates this ocular pressure around the eyes, allows some of the tension to release. It also helps to bring fresh energy, invigorate. Brings us back to our body. And then take a deep breath in. Slow breath out. And then as you release your hands, go ahead and just give your face a little massage wherever it feels like it needs it. Maybe around the eyes, cheeks, forehead. And you can blink your eyes open. And Tamara, take us away.
Well, I don't have a lot prepared. As I said, it's been a really interesting 3-year journey. And I guess what I often find myself reflecting on at this time and looking at where we are now with the teachers is really thinking, how do you open up the mindset to being a holistic teacher? Because that word holistic is used a lot. And, you know, we are an IB school, the International Baccalaureate Organization. So we're an IB school. So they're, one of their, you know, hallmarks or their key phrases is, you know, this holistic approach to teaching and learning. And I've never felt the same 360 of holistic in other international schools that I felt at Roong. So I guess one of the things that I notice we encounter the most is bringing teachers in and helping them understand or find their footing in a holistic environment. And Viola, actually, our school is grade 6 to grade 11 this year. So it's interesting also at that middle years to high school level, because a lot of people can see and kind of grasp holistic education with younger children, maybe to a greater extent, because there is more of a duty of care. You do feel you have to guide, you know, to guide them. They are still grappling with who they are and how to interact and how to be, and they're more present often with their fears, their hopes, their concerns. But when you start to get into middle school years and high school years, it's interesting because we see those children as more adult and more capable when actually they're learning how to walk again. Instead of being toddlers learning how to walk, they're actually, you know, toddler adults learning how to walk in adult shoes, and they need just as much of that kind of guiding mindset. But it's a challenge for a lot of our teachers coming from more traditional school backgrounds. And so we have everything from sort of the very motherly, seeing it as a very parental role, which it is, but it isn't, to others who see it as, oh, we have to, being student-centered and having the student at the center means that they have to be okay and happy with everything going on around them, which also is not is not necessarily the whole of it. So it's often an interesting journey of how to support and help teachers understand what does holistic education really mean, and how do I, as a practitioner of it, find my balance within it and my actual outlook and practice of it, if that makes sense. So I think for me, that's what I would like to maybe explore and unpack a bit. We were very fortunate that at the start of our in-service, the woman who founded Aroon School talked with us and did a really lovely presentation about what is learning, and just starting with that. And then Robin also came and talked with the teachers about, you know, what is holistic education and what were her experiences at Aroon, which a lot of them, by the way, found very, very helpful. Robin. You know, teachers are still talking about that.
Oh, that was back in May.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm just often wondering about it and struck by, you know, when we have new teachers join us, you know, what their background brings to it. And this year we were very fortunate to have a teacher join us, teaching social studies, but she actually comes from a practice working at the middle and high school level, teaching social studies in a Waldorf school in the Philippines. So her initial teaching experience was grounded in the Waldorf school setting. And for me, I found it quite unusual. I find a lot of teachers in Waldorf settings, you know, maybe up to grade 5 or something, but to find someone who was teaching grade 7, grade 8, you know, and in a Waldorf setting is quite interesting and unique. And I find that her background practices, she has a lot, I think also personally, but from her teaching experience, she's come in with a mindset and a way of managing the class that's very respectful, very inclusive, and very, I guess, eliciting of the student's self, but also in her own way, really looking at how to understand the students in front of her and how to create those opportunities for them to understand or explore or develop as people, not just getting the information, but developing as people. And I thought, I wonder, is it because she's coming from that background? Does she have more capacity or understanding or practices? And I asked, well, how is that developed for you? And she said, well, actually, even at the Waldorf school, it just was very natural for her. So yeah, nature versus nurture. I don't know where we find these, holistic practitioner teachers. Because even for me, I can't really say why I'm drawn to this kind of teaching ethos. And I found that I don't know that I was taught, do it this way, do it that way, or, oh, well, we discuss this or we bring out that. I just had always been working with children since I was 9, babysitting or tutoring or things. So for me, I always start with, who's this little person in front of me and what do they need? And how can I help guide them? So I don't know. So that's the question that I'm sitting with now, because I have, teachers who are in various levels of that spectrum of understanding how to approach their teaching and how to approach their students. So I guess I'm wondering, for your journey and your understanding, how and where did it come from? And what were some things or experiences or quotes or teachers that you found really brought home to you what holistic teaching meant and how to open yourself to it more?
Seems like it's a long journey. It doesn't happen all at once. I was just thinking, I spent 4 or 5 years traveling around the US and visiting schools that were unique approaches to democratic education, free schools, Waldorf, Montessori, just because I suddenly realized there were these schools out there that were more engaging of the whole child and the whole self. But I think it didn't really hit me in the face that it wasn't about what's out there, but it was about what's in here that relates to what's out there. I was a few years into things before I started realizing it's not about what's out there. It's about that relationship between the inner and the outer. And that didn't just happen all at once, although J. Krishnamurti's teachings were a big part of it for me. But having friends who had worked with J. Krishnamurti, or friends that were just doing things that were, you just started to observe there was a different way of being than operating from our head alone. But it took a whole series of observations and several years to start to see that there was a little opening possible where it was about me changing. And then from there, years and years of constantly questioning and re-questioning And it's like, I never really get it. I feel like I'm always in the process of learning what it means.
You, Robbie.
One thing that has been on my mind as you were talking, Tamara, is this kind of experiment, this kind of playing with this idea of creating a vision for what you see as like what you want for that child by the end of, you know, the year, or I guess you could do it less, like the term, the semester, the working unit, and you know, seeing what the teacher can actually bring to that vision, you know, having a specific child in mind, like how do they see that child transforming, you know, and in what aspects do they actually see the transformation happening? And I think if you're able to work out that vision with the teacher and kind of explore that with them, you know, you can start to maybe add suggestions, or you know, if the teacher seems to be all about, you know, skills and, oh, the student can recite this and they can deliver this and they can perform this, you know, maybe you can ask questions. Well, during that time, what were they doing to build friendships with those around them? How were they reaching out to help others, or were they able to ask questions to explore more? Because right, I hear your call of this like middle school, high school area where it's tough. It's tough to find that and to work that quality into teachers. So
Yeah, I think this is why if you start with the little ones and you, for instance, with earth science, teach them about tending the earth, taking care of the earth, you know, planting, just little things like that, but with that attitude of wholeness and goodness. I mean, this is good for the earth. This is, you know, it's since I'm not in the classroom anymore, and I wish I were, because I would love to work with those little kids, but with working with other teachers and trying to get them to like the question that you asked about, well, how do you experience holistic? What do you mean when you say holistic? I mean, wholeness. And I'm a David Baum fan, you know, with the wholeness and the implicate order, you know, it's like from inside, like you were saying, Robin, it comes from within. And that it's almost like healing, right? You have to heal yourself and then be able to exude that and invoke that, you know, and get the children to see it. So being like an example, it's complicated, but if they get to the 8th grade and they still don't have that mentality, you know, that mindset, that from the beginning, then it's hard. You know, it's really hard to get them. With teachers too, I mean, they come in and they haven't had that training, or they don't have that understanding. You know, just getting them to see that, I don't know, you can, doing it in person is so much easier, you know, because you can build that relationship, you know, but doing it online, like I'm doing just with Zoom or with, it's a tough job for reforming education today. But I think SOU is doing a great job with you guys. You know what it's about, and that you're training these teachers and they're coming out, and, you know, do they still have that master's program? That's that holistic education master's. It's joined with whom? I just wanted to ask that question.
Our MAT program, our bachelor's has a holistic teaching and learning certificate. And if you want to come to campus on Monday and come find our education and psychology building, our students who are part of the Holistic Teaching and Learning Club have created this really fun series of activities for meeting people on Monday between 11:30 and 1:30. It's called an open house adventure.
Adventure.
Yeah, and the students in the club have really organized it. There's just a few of us faculty who have been helping and supporting it. And that's on Monday. You're welcome to come, Viola. I'd love to meet you in
just walk
person.
in. 11 o'clock or so?
You just walk into the main building, the education psychology building.
Yeah.
Where the,
Uh-huh.
and you can walk around and you can meet me, but a whole bunch of other people too. It would be great to see you.
I'd love to go any Monday.
No, it's just this Monday. It's
Okay, it's
day
only
after
Monday.
tomorrow. It's October 24th is this special
Oh,
open house
okay.
event. And since you live right here in Ashland, that would be lovely.
Well, I'll see if I can get some, yeah. I live right now, I'm out in the woods, way out, near Jacksonville. So, and I'm not driving, so I'm gonna have to get somebody to take me, but that is so worth to find somebody to take me there. Thank you. I'm going to start checking and see who's willing to.
Okay. And if you can find someone to bring you here, I might be able to drive you back because I have one meeting at 2 o'clock and then I have to be in Medford at 4:45. So I have a little gap in there and I could probably drive you back if you can get.
Oh, well, you don't have to do that, but
Well,
if Sylvia takes me, she can go to the library and read books or something while we're,
okay.
yeah. Okay, well,
It'd be nice if you could come and introduce yourselves to us. Sorry,
I'd
that's a
love-
little off topic, but it's just
Okay.
Vi and I have been
Perfect.
seeing each other for a while now on this weekly thing, and we've never met.
great, thank you.
That would be lovely. Yeah. I know as Cam and Andrea know from the talk that I gave or the presentation that I gave at last year's Holistic Education Conference, one of the things that's really interesting to me is this idea of culture and our, as humans raised in certain cultures, we have certain beliefs and understandings that may be different culture to culture. And that's also something that I wonder about because with my Thai leadership and owners of the school, we often talk a lot about the teacher nature and what the expectations are of what the teacher should be like or should know or should understand kind of innately. And sometimes I have to wonder, like, there maybe is a level or maybe some expectations that are a bit different between the Thai culture and Western culture in terms of what is expected of teachers. And it's something I've been thinking about quite a lot from the perspective of communication and how to communicate effectively and clearly when you have an intercultural team. So it's not just, looking at the Thai culture versus Western culture. We have the Thai culture, Zimbabwe culture, and Canadian culture, and Colombian culture, and Pakistani culture. And, we've got a lot of different, I guess, inner worlds that people bring to the teaching. And just one podcast I listen to a lot is 10% Happier. And they had a podcast, was really interesting talk, and it was with, I wrote down her name, Sharon Salzberg, and reflecting on this idea of self-love or self-compassion. And she actually started off her talk about how when she met the Dalai Lama and she asked a question about, what happens when we have a lot of self-anger or self-hate, or, we don't see that we have that Buddha mind inside ourselves. And this was such a baffling concept to the Dalai Lama that somebody would not come from that understanding of having the Buddha nature. But then a number of other Western participants in that talk raised it and said, yes, this is actually quite a question that I had as well, that we have a lot of maybe not self-loathing is a little bit harsh, but, a lot of negative feelings of about self, and often taught that thinking about ourselves maybe makes us selfish, but also you know, that need for self-love and self-compassion as the ground, or the fertile ground from which empathy, compassion, and love for others can grow. And so I thought, wow, that I would never have thought about that as a mindset difference, either culture to culture, but it does make sense, I guess. And then she was talking about that self-love, that self-compassion as a skill that can be taught, that can be developed. And listening to you, Viola, you know, talking about how the American education system right now is really in crisis, and we really need to find new ways to reach students. And I think this idea of wellness and having wellness and mindfulness brought into schools is a really important place to start, because if we can help those children develop their sense of self-love and self-compassion, you know, how much greater will be their capacity for empathy and compassion for others. And, you know, as you're saying, you bring them to that understanding of caring for the earth, caring for this plant, or you know, this ecosystem, what does that mean? And then thinking about yourself, that you yourself are an ecosystem. You yourself, you know, have a world in you, and that is worthy of being acknowledged, and that, you know, you have to have that patience and kindness with yourself as sort of a beginning step for children to develop.
You're reminding me of an activity I did last week in William Green's class. I'm taking one of his classes just because I thought it would be helpful to me. The class itself is Philosophical Foundations of Education, but every week he does activities to help us keep going deeper into ourselves and our own inner life too. And the one we did last week was, I forget all the things that led up to it, because it kind of, everything always spirals into each other, but it was especially toward the beginning of class where me and it's young student teachers, people who are in the bachelor's program. I'm teaching the same class, and I'm just kind of taking it as observing. And he asked us to all think about one of our deeper values. What's a deep value? And to look at one that we want to work on, that we know it's our value, but it doesn't always shine forth. And just to reflect on it for ourselves for a few minutes, and then to do a pair share and talk with someone else that we were sitting near. And the depth of that conversation was magnificent. And the value that I chose was self-love. No, it wasn't love. It was about loving. It was just lovingness. And my partner chose joy. And we both went into, you know, things that are going on inside of us that allow us to express it or not. But what I realized in doing the activity was how seldom we have those conversations, and how helpful it was just to put to words those aspects of our deeper selves that we really want to shine forth, but that don't always.
Thank you, Robin. That's really lovely. I might try that.
It's great.
Yeah. I know at our school, usually when we start our year level meetings, which happen usually once a week or once every other week, where we get together and talk about what are we doing and our best practices, and where different students and their needs, so that we can have a clear picture together and make plans together. How can we help guide this child better? We usually start with, we have some kind of 5-minute, 10-minute activity on mindfulness, and, sometimes just breathing. Yeah, it's interesting. So thank you, because I think I might bring that in. Because sometimes our teachers find that moment of breathing or mindfulness a bit difficult. Although I don't know, I think some of you know, but just recently, Thailand had a very violent incident. Like we have never had the kinds of incidents like the school shootings that, you know, seem to be so prevalent in the US. But a former police officer became enraged about something in his life, and he was picking up his child from daycare, and he stabbed and killed many of the children and teachers. And it has rocked Thailand to its core, because that's unthinkable that somebody would have that kind of explosion, and unthinkable that that would happen with children and teachers, because in Thailand particularly, children are extremely valued, and teachers are extremely respected. And I guess when I start these meetings, sometimes these moments come from what I need. And what I needed was, I needed to do some metta at that moment to heal myself, to find my foundation. And it was the first time that I saw all of the teachers, like everyone really needed it. Sometimes I can feel some of the teachers getting restless, or, you know, kind of not having a hard time taking it seriously or sitting with it. But at that moment, we'd had a moment of silence that morning, and we just all really needed it. And again, bringing it back to what skill, that self-love and that self-compassion, because whenever we read about, you know, the shootings or these kinds of acts, the person perpetrating it themselves is a victim of their own lack of self-love and self-worth in some way. I can see it always comes back to something that's happened within them, and they don't have that esteem, they don't have that self-compassion, and then it manifests in these very violent ways. So I wonder then, in the States, to what extent is mindfulness being brought into schools? Because I know it's a movement, and I see that many states, many public school districts and things, they do bring it in, and I'm wondering, you know, is it helping? Are there any studies being done to see how it's being implemented, to what extent it's having some kind of impact? Because I see that as a foundation, you know, learning yourself, knowing yourself. That's like a real foundation of holistic education.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
I don't know about the
great
research.
point. When I looked into this a little bit a few years ago when I was doing my thesis, which was on yoga in early childhood settings, and noticing that a lot of times when yoga and mindfulness is brought into classrooms, it's done in a really watered down way. So they might be listening to a recording, or it's done for just 5 minutes, and it's kind of like something that you check off the list, like, yep, okay, we've done mindfulness, or there's not a lot of depth to it. And I think a big reason for that is because the teachers themselves have no connection to it. So it's something that the administrator or their school said, okay, we're going to bring in this program, or we're going to do this technique once a day or once a week. But the depth of wisdom that's there, I think, in a lot of the Eastern traditions, and whether it's Buddhism or yoga, not just those, but the depth of thinking that comes along those lines of what are your core values and how are you living those? What do you want to see in your students? And, you know, thinking more deeply about those things. Even in places that are doing it, sometimes I still feel like it's not enough, because it's like, okay, we ask the question and we do a little work, and then, okay, we checked that off the list. We did that for 15 minutes. Now let's get down to the curriculum. And now we spend the next like 8 hours working on that. Rather than, if we're really sincere about bringing these other practices in and really changing the way that we want to do education, why aren't we doing it ourselves? And I mean, so the example that I have from the most recent experience is at our little school where we just have 2-3 students right now, but I'm not someone who actually knows much about nature, and we've started this holistic nature-based school. And lucky for us that we have good friends who are incredible, intelligent, deeply connected to the natural world humans. And so we went on a walk with Tara, who's a part of this with us, and she helped us to identify trees and the leaves. And I learned so much. We were with the students, but I learned so much. And now I feel more confident to go back out and walk with the students and be connected to nature with them. And rather than if Tara had tried to teach that to me inside of a classroom, or I want to have those experiences for myself. And even like at Roong, for example, like gardening is a big thing. Gardening, farming, working with the land. And I want to bring that to students because I see how important and valuable this is, but I realize my own lack of knowledge and my lack of connection to those things. And I didn't even know where to begin how to learn that. So what I've been finding the most valuable is when someone pushes me into those situations and teaches me and helps me create those deep connections and creates a whole environment in the school and the place where you're learning these things where this becomes what's so important. Like, we're going to spend the 8 hours on this and then the 15 minutes on that, because this is where we're feeling that imbalance. It's not to say that those other things aren't important, but we're so imbalanced right now that we really have to spend time developing that part of ourselves, asking those deep value questions. And I sincerely think that it's not done enough. And that's why I love these conversations and being able to refresh that feeling of this is important. Like, we need more of this and more reminders that, or more even permission sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I need permission. Like, it's okay that your kids don't know the alphabet yet, or you know, that, or whatever level they're at, but they know they're able to do this other thing, and that's important. And it's just so easy because we constantly get the other reminders of they don't have this yet, they don't have this yet, they don't, why didn't you, you know, and it's like, it's overwhelming. And so of course there's no time to develop those qualities and those values that matter. So I always just so appreciate when I have those moments that remind me sincerely that you're allowed to spend time on this. This matters. And really creating that deep change in me as the one who's then going to be able to pass that on and facilitate with the students.
Upside down education. I think we start with, you know, we teach to the test, or the public schools that I knew, I don't know what's going on right now out there, but it's okay. This is where you're going to have to be. These are the outcomes that we expect from you. And then you teach to that. And I mean, where's the creativity? Where's the spirituality? You know, like the only kind of meditation that I really can get into is a Thich Nhat Hanh. Forgive me if I mispronounce that name, but he really, because you're really just thinking of the in-breath and then the out-breath, and then I add something to it, movement, you know, like breathe in, breathe out. Now, children would like that, right? And you do that for a little while, and then there you can have the opportunity to talk about the breath and how the earth breathes and how, you know, everything is breathing, and you get all that where you're talking about the systems within systems in the body. And so there's so many opportunities then with just a little simple exercise like that to teach something, and they don't even know that they're learning some kind of skill or some kind of knowledge, you know. So this is great. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of that at the beginning of our classes. But I think learning to stop in the middle and breathe into things, not just at the beginning, is important. But just this year, as the first full 12-month period that I've almost every single class I teach, I do give time at the beginning, and how much that grounds me, not just the students. And the depth of our conversations are so much better when I give time for a few minutes of breath work and body awareness. And even though that might be superficial because it's just at the beginning, it feels like it starts to weave itself into everything.
Yes, well said. Mhm.
Mm.
And nobody objects to it. Nobody thinks, oh no, that's spiritual, I don't want to do that. When I say, okay, let's put both our feet on the floor and just watch our breath for a few minutes, and I'll lead a little guided meditation. But it everybody, when they open their eyes, are like more present in that room, and it does make a difference.
Yes.
I think what I'm hearing, is that the importance of that personal practice and having that connection to some kind of personal practice, but also on the other side, having that openness to continue being a lifelong learner. I mean, I look at you, Viola, and you're just such an inspiration of, and such a great example of, there's never a point where you say, I know enough and I'm done, always finding something new, something to engage with and to think about and to know more about and to experience, just a plain experience. And I just wonder with teachers having also gone through the hiring process as well, and sometimes it seems very hard, because when you talk to people and you ask, what's something that you've learned recently that's really touched you, what kind of values do you feel you bring into the classroom, and how do you put those into practice with the students? We really ask these kinds of questions and look to hire people that have that evidence or can share something meaningful from them. But I often find still, when they get put into the classroom and actually thrown into the midst of things, you can kind of see the people who really have that so deeply entrenched in their bones that they can't separate, it's impossible for them to not have that mindset. It's just almost who they are to the core. And then the teachers who say it or believe in themselves that they have it, but yet it's not so deeply within. And they're the ones then that really struggle, like, how do I connect with the students? How do I move the content or the skills learning and frame it in such a way that it's an opportunity for understanding self or exploring self? So I guess that's kind of my pain point is trying to figure out how to flip that switch for some of those teachers who really genuinely feel they have that happening in them, and I'm not saying I'm one of the teachers that has it deeply entrenched in her bones. I like to think I am, but I also see people on more of the spectrum where it's something that they feel they are always learning or they are always developing their skills, but yet it's not at their core maybe. So how to help them, how to, like you said, Cam, how to bring them to those moments where they can experience it or reflect on it or bring it out more.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. And yeah, I definitely, what you're saying, the more that you can live in that and live into that, that space, that holistic space, that I think there's a degree of faith you just have to put in that it will others will be drawn into it. Because I don't think it's one of those things that you can really instruct, right? It's one of the uninstructables. Because we want the teachers, we want the individuals to be open to growth, to be open to development, to be open to learning. And they have to find their own way of accessing those avenues. So I think, especially in someone in your position that, you're trying to, you're leading these teachers in this program and in this community that you said, it's really tough because you're going to face so much outside pressure and so much like questioning of what you're doing, and but somehow you just have to be open and certain all at the same time. So I don't know.
Yeah, the image that came to my mind when you were describing that, Tamara, was that rigidness that sometimes comes. And I think, and I love to relate everything to yoga, but in Shavasana, at the end of a yoga class, when you lay down on your back, and they say it's the hardest pose in yoga because to really be able to surrender and let go and just lay on your back without holding tension in your body is extremely difficult. And in my own experience, I've noticed it where, okay, I'm in Shavasana, I'm relaxed. And then I realize I'm not. And then sometimes you have someone come over to you and they move your arm and they'll lift your arm up and they'll say, relax. And like, I am relaxed. I am. And you're not. There's still tension there. And finally, like after like it takes a while and you're like, oh, I was still holding on. And I didn't even realize it. Like we hold so much tension in our jaw and our tongues and our, like so much tension is there. And it's such this progressive process of being able to become aware of it even and know that we're still holding on to these ways that we think it should be. And then the act then of once you even notice it, can you let it go? And I love this it helps me to envision this word of permission, because sometimes it's like right now there's nothing else to do. Like you don't have to do a yoga pose. I'm not asking you to write anything or do anything. The only thing I'm asking you to do is lay on your back and do nothing and relax. And it's like, I have this permission finally in my day where I don't have to do all these things, and just creating that space and that environment and that love and that permission that it's okay to do these things. It's okay to, like, no one's going to judge you. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to whatever. And then in those moments, it's like just a little bit easier to let go. But when that environment isn't there, it's like, nope, I can't. I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I can really let go. So what's always helped me, whether it's in yoga and performing Shavasana and more the setting that maybe we're thinking about, is like when I just have these reminders of it's okay. Like it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to just try it this way and not finish, A through D, which you were supposed to finish this week. I'm proud of you if you don't get through these things. Great. There's space to do something else. And just do more yoga.
Yeah.
I miss not going to your yoga classes. Poor Andrea had the most amazing yoga classes, and I just could never get to that. There's always something going on.
I loved your yoga. It's online and it's a reasonable hour for you, Tamara. I think I have to wake up at 5 a.m. so I'm not doing it.
I changed it, Robin.
New time, Robin.
So,
what is it?
Well, actually, it still may not work for you. in Eastern time, it's 8 a.m. on Fridays. So for you, no, that doesn't
For
work.
me, it would be 8 p.m.
But
right?
for you, it's 7 p.m. Tamara.
Okay,
But
you
that
know,
would be
please
five,
send me
that's
the
5
link,
a.m.
please.
for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it, even an hour later, but not 5 a.m. I just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially 5 a.m. online. If it were, I was going somewhere at 5 a.m. and being with real people, but I haven't motivated myself
Yeah.
for that one.
Andrea, you're talking about that rigidness. It's interesting because I find, you know, at Roong school, we really don't impose, or we really try to have an environment where we have that permission of, you know, focusing on the student and understanding this. But we do have that layer of the IB on top. But I try really hard to, you know, I always tell the teachers, unhand the curriculum. Don't worry so much about the stuff, worry about the why of that stuff. And when you find that why are they learning this? Why is this important? Why is it essential for them? And what they need to learn about themselves, you'll find the stuff that you need. You know, there's always stuff for teachers. We have lots of stuff, you know, end of stuff we could bullet. So, you know, but I find teachers actually impose rigidity on themselves. It's really interesting that, you know, they often, teachers will say, well, I have to do this, or, well, because we are required. I'm like, who said, who's required? Who said you had to? But this year I can understand that feeling more, because for many years I've taught, I haven't had that kind of high stakes tests or extreme test situations. Most of the international schools I've been in, you know, the exams may have been some kind of performative task, not kind of a rote exam. And they have been part of many summative tasks. But this year I'm teaching grade 11. I'm teaching in the diploma program, which is a high stakes exam end. In fact, not just one exam, but 2 exams and an essay and an independent oral activity. And I haven't had that pressure to ensure, you know, like, my students need to do well on this exam because it will impact their university, it will impact their this. And while in my mindset, I see these as little checkpoints, and what happens, and we find ways to overcome. Our life will go on, our life will unfold as it needs to unfold. But I also can see the pain, the suffering from the parents and the student side of that uncertainty and that concern and that need to have something, you know, to have this high score, or to do well on this exam, because that's it, that dictates their end of their learning cycle, and sets them up for what's next. And it's really been interesting for me to reflect and notice in myself what that pressure does to me, you know, like, and how I can try to not reflect that fear, you know, like it gives me real fear and real anxiety. And I can see my students now in grade 11, they're really feeling the weight of, like, oh my gosh, it's all so real and we're almost there, you know. And I'm like, these guys don't, there's only 4 boys in my class, right? Like, these guys need to have a sense of urgency, but they don't need to have a sense of anxiety, you know. How to not reflect the anxiety on them, because it's just going to amplify their own anxiety, and how to transform that into sort of a self-motivational, self-propelling urgency, because, you know, teen boys, but not expand that anxiety that they already have, and how to kind of remove it and make it feel more okay. Like, all right, notice that I have this anxiety. It's okay. I can move forward and do what I need to do, or find out what I need to find out. But notice, why do I have this anxiety? It's really interesting. It's interesting to see what it's doing to me and also for them. We just went through a whole little unit for personal and professional skills. So we did this unit called emotional intelligence, and really explored what that means and how your brain can hijack you, you know, and it was really interesting. And they did I just said, you know, you have so many tasks dictated to you. This time I'm going to let you, you know, what did you find interesting? What do you want to know more about? And how do you want to show me what you learned, what you know? And then let them do it. And they just did so well. You know, like one wrote an almost academic research essay, and one wrote a humorous article, and one had a presentation. It was really interesting to see what they came up with and what they found interesting and meaningful out of it all. But I can see now where some teachers get that rigidity from, because it's a battle in myself every time. Like, I can't focus on that end goal. I have to focus on the now, and what do these students need now, because that's going to make that end goal successful for them if I can address where they are now and how to help them develop now.
I love that. Just letting go of it's a process of letting go, and then trusting that the students will be able to present and share and their knowledge. But like, you were able to just let them do that, and they did. I mean,
that's the easy part for me. The hard part is, like, they have an exam. They have exams. You know, and how can they how do you find joy in an exam? A high stakes exam, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite frank, I mean, I might be a little harsh when I say this. I mean, these are societally structured entities that I don't think are built out of like a healthy ecosystem. You know, I don't think these exams are meant for, you know, wellness and wholeness and inspiration and levity. And, you know, these things they're not that. They're tools to assign a measure of societal prestige or capability. So, you know,
just tell them don't take the exam.
Right. I mean, that's one
I wish, but
What
they
I did when I had to proctor, I had to proctor all the DP exams in the school where I worked in Malaysia. What I would do is I would set it all up, because you have to get it ready for them beforehand, and I would just imbue as much grounded centeredness in myself as the person being in the room with them while they were taking the exam. I would stare out the windows and look at nature. I would do everything I could to create this loving space so that they could do what they had to do in taking that exam. I don't agree with the exam system. I was in a system that's what it was doing. So we were doing it. And I knew a lot about the levels of the students, and the ones that were going to fly high on that exam and the ones that weren't. And I just wanted to be present for them while I had to proctor their exams. Yeah. And that's all I could do for that situation.
I know I might have to channel back to when I was teaching in the Bronx in the public school system, you know, when they had those standardized exams, and they'd come in the morning, and I would usually like bake muffins or have juice, because a lot of them didn't have breakfast either. So like I'd try to set up like a station with some fruit, some muffins and everything, so that I knew before they started the exam that they had full bellies and their brains could work better, and, you know, give hugs to the ones that wanted hugs, and, you know, fist bump or thumbs up for the others, just to help them feel like, yeah, don't worry about this. This is something we have to go through. You'll do the best that you can. And that's all we ask, is that you try your best. But it's interesting being, you know, again, and that was 6th grade. So, you know, I'm looking at my 11th to be 12th graders, and it's like, wow, So this is this high stakes exam concept I've heard so much about. And now I'm here. Oh, I see. So it's a really interesting place to be in as a holistic practitioner. Like, wow, all right, here I am. Now, how is this going to fit in my little world paradigm of, where we go with teaching and demonstration of learning and growth?
I thought you had chosen the career program so that you didn't have to do the DP.
Well, no, within the career related program, so the students will have the university courses. So they're all doing different university courses through Savannah College of Art and Design, through Swiss University of Management Sustainability. My son's doing one through the local college, King Mongkut University of Technology. He's doing a communication design. Another's doing like political science through the same university, but in Thai. So they have that through the university, which accredits them in some way. Dylan's fortunate. His is, of course, because it's design. So it's through projects, through hands-on things, which actually is more challenging for him because he's an academic kid and he understands writing and doing these papery things. So it's kind of like a twisting in his mind, like hands-on stuff, but I think it's been really a good experience so far for him. But on top of that, they have to take 2 to 4 DP courses. So they have to do some diploma courses. So right now, English and math is the main one. Some are also doing some online, like film studies or business. Dylan's trying to drop his film studies just because he's finding that it being online and not being with people, he's finding it not as challenging or as interesting as it could be. And his feeling like is if he's going to do this and he has to take an exam, he wants to have that enrichment. This is my little holistic thinking, IB thinking child. Like, if I'm not going to be fully engaged and enriched, I'm not going to be able to show that I've learned anything. So I'm not going to take that course. So I'm like, okay, let's see. Really interesting the way they're managing, the different levels of it's a very I would say very big on self-independence, and self-organization and self-management, to the point that that's my next unit with them is management of the things, management of the digital and paper assets, because I'm not so worried about my 10th grade girls when they get to this stage. They're all like beautiful bullet journal note takers and organizing their notebooks and color coding things. But, my boys are a little bit more on the, well, we get it done, we put it somewhere and, like, we've got a binder, it's got papers in it, we're organized, like, let's let's explore this a bit more. I got to class on time. I got self-management. Okay, you've got 3 outstanding tasks. Let's explore this more. So we're looking at how to design something to really develop that with them. But it's funny because, some of us teachers don't necessarily have those skills well practiced within ourselves. So trying to find the teachers who really have that and can really convey that well is that for me is the interesting challenge with these higher level boys. Yeah.
I need to go, and I'm the one recording.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you,
Yes.
Tamara.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And